So very warm welcome to all our participants. Hi Satish, Anuja, Chirag, Hiral, Parvati, Vanita, Zarna, Bhavna, Arman, Priya, Mauli. Thank you all for joining in. Hi Anuja. Hi Priya. So we'll be beginning our session in a couple of minutes time. So there has been some good work done by even Henry Ford also when it comes to controlling the worrying aspects, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what the topic was so interesting. It made me go in and in and in. And I was just going through the internet and it gave me a lot of information.
Yes.
Pretty interesting one.
Absolutely. I think
And that has been the need of the current hour, correct?
very much. I mean, whether it is current ever, it's all the more needed. I think it's always an eternal subject because you don't need a worrisome world that we went through in 2020 to be talking on the book that we are talking today. Because I think this book that we're going to be talking today is probably the first book ever written on a topic of this kind. And very
Correct.
many books have been written after that, but the man who wrote the book is the father of this subject.
Absolutely.
It's a book that I would say should have been read by every individual, whether you're in the corporate life or whether you are in your non-corporate life, wherever it is. It's a book that somebody should pick up and read. And I'm happy that we're
True.
talking about that book today. And I'm hopeful that this session should push a couple of us to go back and buy this book and read it.
So when it comes to books and all, definitely it gets more and more interesting as we go deeper and deeper in it.
Yes, always.
So well, it's time to begin with our today's webinar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. A renowned quote by Dale Carnegie. No problems are solved by worrying about the problems, but they are solved by rational thought and decisive actions. Even Henry Ford mentioned in one of his quotes, worry are the most wasteful things in the world. 2020 being the year up and down with lots of up and down, people are confused, not knowing what to be done. How do we stop worrying and living? Let's hear it from our expert today. HR Association of India welcomes you all to the 2021 Dialogue Masterclass series on the topic, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, a book-based session. To know more about HRAI and its event, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. I request all the participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines mentioned in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We'll be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all the participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for today. Mr. K. Rajiv Narayanan, founder and CEO, The Leadership Element TLE India. Mr. Rajiv comes with 21 years of immense experience in the corporate and global consulting in the learning space. He is a certified global leadership coach and facilitator who has worked with many organizations across the globe in building leadership capabilities. He now runs the Leadership Elements TLE India, which is India's only book based leadership consulting house. Rajiv is a voracious reader and works in challenging the immunity to change in leaders, organizations, and communities. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. Details for the same has been shared in the chat window. I now hand over the platform to Mr. Rajiv. Over to you, Rajiv.
All right, thank you, Peter, for setting the context so beautifully. Powerful quotation from Henry Ford that he spoke of. I think it's a very interesting topic to talk on, and I'm very glad and honored to be part of this talk today. And I've done this earlier for HRAA, so it's always a family feeling to be here, Peter, along with you and others to run this session. Good evening to all the curious and enthusiastic participants here who are eager to listen to me on a very powerful book, which I think is eternal and applies to each one of us in every stage of our life, be it professional or personal. The session is going to be a little different. I don't know if this was an experience you had with the earlier speakers. A couple of guidelines, if I can set it. There's going to be a 1 hour monologue from my side, along with powerful slides that you will see on the screen. Listen to me deeply, uh, sugar your thoughts, keep reflecting, and obviously keep making notes if you have a notebook and a pen. So these two tools called notebook and pen, I would request each one of you to keep it next to you. I have mine ready. After we end the session, we'll have a Q&A where you could share what was the biggest learning of the session, plus also ask questions if you have any. To make it uninterrupted and have a larger bandwidth, I would request all of you to go off video except me, uh, because you're going to see the slides and only listen to me there. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So good evening to all of you, and let me share the slide. Once I share the slide, if some of you are not muted, if you can confirm that you're seeing the slide, that will help me that we are on track. So
Yes,
I'm
we can
hoping
see.
all of us are able to see the slides.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it. All right, fantastic. Okay, so good evening once again. My name is Rajiv Narayan. I run a company called The Leadership Elements. We are India's only book-based leadership consulting house. We primarily work with organizations in challenging immunity to change in leaders, organizations, and communities. Books have always been a great source of learning and knowledge across generations. I think all of us would agree to this. If you go and meet top leaders in the world and successful people in the world, 9 out of 10 of them are invariably book readers. Books help us to expand ourselves, amplify ourselves as individuals, makes us a contributor in any conversation as against being a mute spectator, by which you can build your credibility and increase your visibility by that. Hence, books is always a great source of learning. Some great person made a very powerful quotation, and I would like to start the session with that quote, that leaders have libraries, victims have televisions. I think it's a bullseye quotation. And as I said this, and you heard me saying it, all of you would be thinking that how many hours have we wasted in front of the television? It would have been worthwhile investing in front of a book on a lap. Having said that, the book of the day that we are talking about is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And this is the first book that has been written, if I know very correctly, on a topic of this kind. It was first published in 1948, And today, what we are 48, 73, 70 plus years, and the book is still relevant. By Dale Carnegie, who is father of behavioral science, father of leadership development, runs an organization called the Dale Carnegie Associates in US. He's no more. His daughter Donna Carnegie runs the organization. It's 100 plus years of existence in the space of leadership development, behavioral growth, etc. One more book that could probably remind you of this person's name is a very powerful book that many of you would have read during your college days or must have read it during your professional life is How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was written in 1936, a classic book, one of the most read and the most sold books after the Holy Bible and the Holy Quran on this planet is How to Win Friends and Influence People. So this was the second book written by Dale Carnegie after that one, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Today's session is going to be very simple, and I'm trying to keep it very crisp and talk about 6 or 7 powerful techniques that Carnegie gives through the books that can help us to stop worrying and start living. Now, are we all worried people? Let's not take the meaning of the worry in a very lofted way, but we are constantly thinking and we are constantly worrying a little about few things, worrying a lot about few things in life. That's part of the framework in which we are living. Primarily triggered because of the fact that we had no control of the past and we have no visibility of the future. So the concern or the fear of the past and the fear of the future together makes us a worrying person, and we lose out on the day that we have ahead. So let's quickly jump into a couple of points that Dale Carnegie is going to talk about in this particular book. All right. Okay, so the first slide comes in front of you. Take a look at the great liner in front of you. A great liner is a huge ship that travels from continent to continent across the vast ocean. It takes weeks, takes months to reach its destination. For a moment, if you equate the liner with your life, are our life not like a great liner? We started off from a point and we are on our own journey to reach a destination point. And the journey is on, continuously on. It's a marvelous organization that we are as an individual, as a human being, and we are wanting to reach somewhere, isn't it? Now, in this journey, worry is also part of our life as much as happiness and delight is. So let's figure out how do we manage it. Fundamental principles of overcoming worry is what we're going to be talking about in this particular session. Let's start with our breakfast. It shows a Christian prayer, but it's definitely not to a religion. All religions have their own prayers because it's a very egalitarian statement that you see on the slide. Every Christian, when he sits on the table, has this prayer saying, "Give us this day our daily bread." What is the meaning of this particular sentence? Give us this day our daily bread. The emphasis is on this day. Meaning what? We got a bread the earlier day, or we may not have got the bread earlier day. We do not know if we are going to be getting the bread for the next day, but at least we have a bread for us to consume for this day. Starting a breakfast with this kind of a prayer ahead. We are devoid of the worry of whether I'll get a bread for tomorrow or not. We are happy of the fact that today we have a bread in front of us. I think it's a marvelous prayer or a marvelous thought process to start the day with. This takes us to a very powerful thought process, right? Take a look at the slide in front of you. All of us are growing. So a child says, when I become a boy says, become a man, become married, life moves on. But the point to reflect here, and you will see this word, let us reflect coming on multiple slides. It's an indication to each one of you that please reflect on your life. It's a session for each one of you. The context in which the content will play will be very different because all of us are in our own different journeys of life. They are not same. Peter has his journey, I have my journey, Parvati has hers, Hiral has hers, Faisal has his. So it's very different. So please play it very contextual to your life that you are currently living. So reflect deep, please reflect deep. So in the journey and the procession of life that we are, would you agree that we have somewhere forgotten that across this journey, we are somewhere not enjoying smaller things of life because there is a constant worry? Dale Carnegie very beautifully takes this to a very, very first principle, and he says and calls it very beautifully called live in day tight compartments. Look at the formation of words, day tight compartments. What does it mean? It just means that there is no point in worrying about the past and living with the fear of the future. What we have on our table is the bread for the day. When you live in day tight compartments and when you train your head to think like this, you are boxing yourself between the sunrise of the day and the midnight or the time you hit the bed. Completely channelized towards what is there in front of you for the day, as against allowing vague thought processes running in your head of something that you are not even aware of, something that you have no control of. Is it worthwhile? Well, I don't think so. And let's reflect. How many of us, when we get up in the morning, we actually think, I'm going to live in dated compartments? Today, I have a session with HRAI. My focus is going to be to run this session powerfully for all the dear participants. For you, you're sitting for this session, your focus is on how much can I take the maximum out of this session and make it useful to make myself the better version of what I am today. When we focus like this, I think we kind of remove the future and the past and we only stay for the present. It's a very powerful principle one, saying live in day tight compartments. Moving on, let's ask ourselves some questions. As we come to office or we get up and start our day, are we somebody who's constantly regretting of what happened earlier, or are we somebody? Please reflect. Are you someone who's going to be saying, okay, something happened yesterday, it went on, that's it, I've put it off, today let me seize the day in front of me? If that's the thought process you are having, then you're somebody who's got a very powerful mindset called the growth mindset. It's important to reflect on these questions. Think about yourself. Are you somebody who can get the maximum out of living in the day tight compartments? It's a huge attitudinal shift in the head. It's not a skill, it's not a behavior. It's an attitudinal shift. It takes us to a very powerful contextual question, right? All of us had a 2020 which was very different. We had worries, we had concerns, we had anxieties. All those words can be used. What were some of the biggest worries for us? Let's kind of break it into nuts and bolts. I have a list. Maybe it applies to some of you, maybe not, or you may want to add some to this. Look at the list. Business. I had my own worry. Oh, I didn't have business for a couple of months. Okay, I had my worry. Some of you may have thought about promotions, increments, certain luxuries of life. You wanted to purchase a car. It got pushed by a couple of years because of 2020 not being great. All these. The point is, were they worries? Were they real worries? If you think a little bit, it takes us to a very powerful principle that Carnegie talks about, saying the best way to come out of any worry that you have and to Prepare yourself is ask this question: what is the worst that can possibly happen? Now, this is not new to you. All of you know this. But let's ponder for a moment. What is the power of this question? I would urge each of you to think in your head. The moment you ask this question to yourself, what happens? Have you ever thought on that? The moment you ask the question, your mind immediately relaxes. It immediately gives you a relief saying, okay, इससे बुरा क्या हो जाएगा? Let's fight it out. It helps you to be more resilient. And who is a resilient person? The meaning of the word resilience is the ability of the individual to bounce back multiple times whenever a low happens in life. So when you ask this question, what's the worst that can possibly happen? It's a very simple principle. Every time you go through something tough, ask yourself this question. You realize that there are some possible windows and doors that seem to be opening through which you can get out of the situation. This principle also helps us by giving a benefit that we can help ourselves by not allowing vague imaginings to come in our head. It helps us to focus on the problem in hand. When you have a situation, and I would request all of you to make a note if you can do this. Many years back, I had a very powerful definition of this word problem. And after that, I don't use the word problem at all, either in text or in language, but I have put it here on the slide just for the learning to happen. Look at the definition. Somebody said this: problem is just a situation for which you are yet to find a solution. I repeat, problem is just a situation for which you are yet to find a solution. How powerful is this? The moment you think in this way, the negative meaning is completely off, and you look at it as just a situation and you're trying to find solutions to it. I think that's a great orientation somebody can have in their head. It solves half the problem. Moving on, I'm going to give you a very powerful tool, which I think is interesting for all of you to follow. Look at the quotation by William James. He says, acceptance of what has happened is the first step in overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Take COVID. It's a misfortune. Accepting it has been the first step for mankind to overcome it. And today we have moved ahead 12 months and we are sitting in line for the government to announce the vaccination in your locality. Now, there's a very powerful model that I would love to give you, and this is a very powerful tool that all of you can start using. It's called the DCAR model. Before that, let me give an example. Imagine yourself, you're getting up in the morning and you're getting ready to go to office. You finish your bath, you come out of the bathroom and stand in front of the cupboard, and you open the cupboard and there are a lot of shirts, tops, trousers, jeans, pants hanging. You pull out a blue shirt and a blue trouser, or a blue top and a blue trousers, and you decide to wear that. Then you think, no, let me not go with the blue. I don't want to wear the blue today. What are we doing to the color? Which is the first quadrant. What we are doing to a color is we are denying it. If you bring it to the topic of the day, when a difficult situation happens in life, most of us are stuck in the first quadrant called the denial. And William James and also Dale Carnegie in the book says, as long as you're going to be in the denial phase, it's going to be tough. A progressive mind, a non-worrying mind, A growth mind will always want to get out of the denial quadrant early on. And by getting out, does it solve the problem? No, it partially does. It doesn't solve it fully. Come back to the blue shirt. You say, I don't want to have the blue shirt or the blue trousers or the jeans. You say, okay, let me have the yellow. No, the yellow jeans, a yellow shirt with the blue jeans may not go very well. Let me try the red t-shirt. Then you say, no, no, not that. Okay, let me not wear the jeans. Let me go and pick up a cotton trouser. No, no, I don't want to wear the cotton trouser because I wore the trouser last week. So multiple thought processes, you're not able to decide, right? What is the stage? I'm sure all of you know the word in English that starts with this letter C. Confusion. When most of us who are stuck in the denial block, there are few people who quickly move out of the denial and come to a box which is confusion. Though the word is confusion, I think it is still better than being in the denial box. At least you're moving on to look at some solution possibilities. So some of us are in the confusion box. Now it's good to quickly move out of the confusion as well. So I go back to the trousers and shirt. Then I figure out I'm confused and finally I decide, okay, this is going to be a blue denim jeans and a red t-shirt for the day. That's nice, bright. You're happy wearing that? You've decided I'm going to wear that. That takes us to the third quadrant. What does the third quadrant stand for? It starts with the letter A, which is the first word of the quotation that you see on the slide. Acceptance. We accept the fact that today is going to be a red t-shirt and a denim blue jeans. The moment you accept it, you're clear in your head because you're no more in denial. You're neither in a confusion, but you're crystal clear as you have accepted the situation. And the model says people who are able to quickly come to the acceptance quadrant are people who will stop worrying and start living. Whereas somebody who's stuck in the D and C quadrant are going to be lingering in worry for a longer time. We still have a quadrant left, right? Let me put what the word there is. It's called renewal. Now, what is renewal? Let's look at the meaning of the word. Renewal is a new version of you. Renewal is a new mood in you. Renewal is a different positive thought in you. When I wear the red t-shirt and the denim jeans and stand in front of the mirror and I look fairly handsome and good looking for the day, I feel, wow, this is the dress for the day. I'm renewed. There is an energy that starts flowing in me and I'm all set to go to office, seize the day, live in the daytime compartments and perform. So whenever a situation or a misfortune or a tough time happens in life, the model is all about helping and telling us that as a human being, are you somebody who is habituated to stay in the denial box for long? Ask yourself this question. Are you someone who's trained yourself to move to confusion quickly? Have you bettered yourself by moving to acceptance fast and finally coming out as a renewed person? And the best way to do that, my friends, is please look at all those tough situations that happened in your life in the past. Write it down in the diary after the session. Put this DCAR model under it and put a mark on each of the quadrant as to in which situations you stayed longer in which quadrant. If you see a pattern that you have been in denial for a longer time, there is work that you need to do. If you see you have been in the confusion for a longer time, there is still work for you to do. However, if you see that you're somebody who's moved to acceptance on all those situations fairly in a quicker manner, then I think you are good to go. That's an activity that you can do after the session. So DCAR model is a very powerful concept, my friends. I would urge and request all of you to follow this. Any situation that happens in front of you today after this session, if you're going to be doing something for the day and some tough time comes in front of you or a difficult situation comes in front of you, ask yourself, am I stuck in D? Am I moving to C? Am I moving to A and R? It immediately gives you clarity and pushes you out of the DNC boxes. I've tried it, it's worked magically for me. I completely believe it will work for you. Moving on, a powerful book had certain chapters, titles. Look at the titles. All of them are about worry and its effect on the body. There was a research that was done on arthritis, and they came up with 4 strong reasons as to why arthritis happens. And arthritis is a pain in the wrist or the fingers or the joints that happens for anybody in any age. The reason that you see there, do you see any bone related, tissue related, ligament related, muscle related, inflexibility related reasons? None. They're all situations which are mental states. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about psychosomatic problems where psychological worries can create health issues. Which brings us to this third principle, which for me has been a Brahmastra kind of a thing that I use it in any situation. Look at the principle, and I love the way the words have been coined. Remind yourself of the exorbitant price you can pay for worry in terms of your health. Is it worth it, my friends, to worry so much that you affect your health? Think about it. I'll give you an example. My mother is 68. My father-in-law is 68. Right? I'll tell you what the difference is. My parents are people who are perfectionists, at least they claim themselves to be perfectionists. And because they are driven by this image of being perfect people, they tend to worry. Simple example. When I was growing up, let's say you keep a glass on the table and you're walking past the table and your hand touches the glass and the glass falls off. My mother would be, oh my God, the glass fell down, the milk spilled over, there's a dent in the glass, you should have been careful. I grew up, I thought that's the way one should be. You should be worrying about things. If you're worrying, which means you're trying to be right and doing things the right way. And that's how you see your parents, right? And you don't have any other exposure of the world, so you think that's the right way to do. I grew up, and then comes this lady in my life, my wife, uh, and the man who was the reason for her to be there. My father-in-law comes in my life, and this man shook my belief. He's somebody who doesn't get perturbed of anything around. Even if a Hiroshima Nagasaki bomb kind of a thing falls next to him and there's a huge crater that gets formed, he would say, Acha, such a big crater has got formed. Please call the guy who can fill it up with sand, fill it up and just move on. Even of something of that bomb shelling situation, he would just say, okay, let's fill it up and move on. And today, my friends, I can tell you, he is the healthiest person in my family. And my mother has got ailments from her head to the toe. And she's 68, she still worries unnecessarily. And as a son, I keep telling her, but it doesn't seem to be improving. Is it worth it? And today I can tell you, and I'm married for 15 years plus, so I decided 15 years back that I don't want to be getting old like my mother. I would love to get old like my father-in-law. If these 2 examples were powerful for you, and if you have seen such people in your family, I would urge you to reflect on what I'm saying. Many of you are young, you have a long way to go. Please remind yourself of the exorbitant price you're paying for worry in terms of health. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. You are sitting in the session today. You do not know if you're going to be alive at 4 p.m. Neither do I know that. Is it worth it? Many of you must have seen your near and dear ones passing off in 2020 because of COVID. I've seen 14 deaths in the last 2 years. Not that I've become a saint. At least it's helped me to worry less. Every death tells me that let's worry less. Let me give you one more powerful statistics. By the end of the session, all of us are moving closer to our grave by 1 more hour. At 3 p.m., we are 1 hour away from the deathbed. After the session, we are 1 hour closer to the deathbed. Yes or no? If that's how things are moving, it's not worth it, my friends. Moving on. A very powerful University of Columbia did a very strong research, and they said insufficient data-based or knowledge-based decisions has always been a trigger for worry for many people. Which also brings us to a very powerful question. Should we analyze worry? You can ask me, Rajiv, we have been talking for the last 20 minutes saying don't worry, don't think about it. And now you're saying analyze worry. Should we do that? Is it worth it? Well, it's worth it. It's worth it if you are going to be taking some action about it. If you're going to be weighing the facts and coming to a decision of what do I do now, it's worth it. If you're going to be worrying about the worry and not trying to take an action, I don't think so. It's got any purpose whatsoever. Every stimulus has to have an action, and that action has to have a purpose. You can't be worrying on the stimulus, right? Did you have a control? You didn't. You only have a control on the action and the result and the purpose that will come out of it. So I think principle 4 is very powerful, and Dale Carnegie says, analyze your worry. Sit and think, what's the cause of worry today? Am I currently worried because my laptop is not working? Am I currently worried because I'm hungry? Am I currently worried because I don't know how long I'm going to be working from home? My HR is not calling me back to work. Figure it out. And once you know the trigger and the reason for the worry, at least you can start addressing it. And anyway, I told you there's no word called problem. So in this slide, let's remove the word problem. We'll see what is the situation? What are the causes of the situation? What are the possible solutions to the situations? And what could be the best solution to the situation? That's a better way to think, right? So my request to all of you is in this session on the 25th of February 2020, I would urge very strongly and request each one of you in this session to bury the word problem in your life right under your foot and replace it by the word called situation, and commit to yourself that you will never ever use the word problem. Anything happens, however grave, difficult it may be, you will call it only a situation and not a problem. That's a promise you can make to yourself and to me, because I'm running the session. I think it's worth this 1 hour of investment. You may not succeed in finding a solution, but at least you will strive to do that, right? So it's a situation, not a problem. That takes us to a very interesting slide. Take a look at this hourglass. It's a very fascinating instrument for me. I've always loved it since my school days. I always felt how beautifully the glass is made, the jar is made, and how lovely the grains move from one side to other, and you can keep doing it for hours and hours without getting bored. I had one in my house, and this was made of bronze, one of the old British ones, and I loved it. And I used to spend a lot of time in it. Look at what's written in the slide. Thousands of grains of sand in the top, they slowly pass through the narrow neck. Nothing you and I can do to make one additional grain pass through the neck. Can you? Peter can try his hell out, Parvati can stand upside down and try it. Hiral can hang herself and try it. I can jump off the building and try it. None of us are going to be successful. All the 48 participants are not going to be successful in pushing one additional grain through the neck. What we're trying to say. And Dale Carnegie says beautifully, one grain of sand at a time, one task at a time. He says it's a very powerful technique to stay away from worry. One grain of sand at a time. It's an analogy. But the task or the work is one task at a time. Which takes us to the next very powerful principle of what this actually means. So let me go back to this. A lot of work that we have on hand through the day, there's a tendency to clutter our table. Amidst so many things that we need to finish, we are jumping across, picking up one, finishing one, moving to the next, finishing that, moving to the third, finishing that. Says is a very powerful way to keep ourselves busy and not worried. It brings us to a very interesting slide. All of you remember the libraries that we used to go during our school and college days, and the laboratories. Why were they interesting? If you go to the laboratories, you were always working. If it was in a physics lab, you were always working about gravity and motion, or talking about speed and time. Some experiment was constantly happening. In a bio lab, we are always working on dissecting something. We are working on plants. In a chemistry lab, we are constantly mixing chemicals across tests, all those things. We kept ourselves so busy, we never knew that 45 minutes of our lab time was over. Likewise, look at the role of a librarian. It's so tough. A librarian has to maintain all the books, keep them on stack. People would come, read the book, leave it on the table and go, put it back, ensure that people are returning the books on time, fill up the register. He or she is constantly working. Now, in a situation where you're constantly working, do you think there is time for worry to enter you? Is there even an airspace for worry to enter you? Well, I don't think so. Hence, I think there's a very powerful quotation on the slide. Peace is found in libraries and laboratories. And who other than Louis Pasteur talking about it? Which brings us to the very, very powerful principle, keep busy. Just today, very relevant to the session, a friend of mine, she was worrying about something in office. There were no mails coming in for some time and she was worrying. I gave her a book called the 5 a.m. Club pages. Within 10 minutes, no worry, she was engrossed in the book, which means she was not busy doing something productive, hence she was worrying. The moment the book came in hand and she was busy reading it, worry vanished. So my friends, keep yourself busy is a lovely way to not allow worry to enter your head. For a moment you may think, but does it even require a slide, Rajiv, to make, we know this. Obviously all of us know this. I'm not giving you anything from other planets. How many of us do that is the question. Next time you're worrying, ask yourself the first question, am I currently sitting and not doing anything worthwhile? And hence there is a trigger of worry in my head. If the answer is a yes, find out quickly something that can keep yourself busy. Remember the lab days. Remember the library days. This takes us to the next slide. There were times when we were worried about things, probably a year back, right? Oh, my coffee is not hot enough. My shirt has not been pressed by my istriwala very well. It's got crumples in it. I don't wear the branded watch like my neighbor wears. Maybe some of us were thinking about these things. I don't want to use the word worry, but just for a context of learning, we were thinking about these things. When I say thinking about, The thought process itself is worrisome. And today, honestly, my friends, are these even significant in front of this big virus kind of thing that you see? I don't think any one of us give a damn to any of these. It doesn't matter if my coffee is not hot today. It doesn't matter if my shirt is not pressed. It doesn't matter if I don't wear the costliest watch. The very fact that 48, I see number 48, which includes me, 48 of us sitting in this room. There's an additional person called Sudhir Menon joined. So 49 of us sitting and listening to this session itself is a blessing that we are alive, awake, and alert. I repeat, we are alive, we are awake and alert today. Not to sound very philosophical or spiritual, pause for a moment, my friends. How many of us and how many of our known people or unknown people like us went to bed yesterday and did not see the sunrise today morning? We have seen the sunrise today morning, and hence we are sitting for the session that Peter has arranged beautifully for us. What's the point? Which takes us to a very powerful learning that all of us are so used to fuss about truffles. And I'm going to emphasize a lot on this. We have this idiotic temptation to fuss about truffles. What is truffle? Trivial things. Is the press on the shirt not trivial? If the coffee or tea is not very hot, isn't it trivial to fuss about? How the hell does it matter? I don't think it matters anymore. I don't think it mattered anytime because Corona has come in, seems to be a sudden larger understanding of such principles in life. My friends, please ask yourself, are you someone who has got this tendency to fuss about things? And if you have a tendency to fuss about things, please bury that habit right away. There's nothing worthwhile to fuss about. And Dale Carnegie says this is one of the fundamental principles. If followed, you can stop worrying and start living. Things have come to us, we deserved it. Things have not come to us because we didn't deserve it. Who am I to fuss about? You had your food today. You may have had a nice chapati and a nice sabji. Dal may not have had enough salt. So what? The next day you may get a fantastic dal, you may get a good chapati, but you may not get a sabji which is tasty enough. So what? You may have walked out of your home to go to office, suddenly started pouring, you got drenched. So what? You went out to book the Ola guy took 15 minutes to come and you got a little delayed. So what? I mean, are these even things to worry about? So I think for all of us, it's high time that we start training our head and start telling ourselves that let's stop fussing. I think fuss is an overused, abused, exaggerated attitude in all of us. क्या फर्क पड़ गया? Nothing has stopped. A friend of mine, same friend whose example I took some time back about no mail and she was reading this 5 a.m. book. She got her son admitted in aeronautical institute. The boy wanted to do aerospace in Dehradun, and she's from Bangalore. She has never been to the hill stations in her life. She went with her son to get spent 3 4 days there, ensured everything is fine for the boy, and they came back. She came back and she was narrating an experience. Incidentally, she is in the space of organization development and leadership development like me. And we keep talking about what lessons life keep giving us. A very powerful statement that she made after a very powerful observation. She said, Rajiv, I've been living in Bangalore. So I've gone to all other places around Karnataka, and Karnataka is in the Western Ghats. So there are hills, there are mountains that I've seen. But when I was in Dehradun and I was standing there at the foothills of the Himalayas, it is not even the Himalayas started, it's at the foothills. The snow-capped mountains has not even started. This is just the regular non-snow mountains. She said, when I was standing there and I saw the huge mountain in front of me, I suddenly realized I'm just a peck. Though I've seen hills and hillocks and mountains here, I've not seen something as massive as what I saw. And I realized I'm just a peck. So what are we fussing about, my friends? So my urge and why I'm spending a little extra time on this slide is because I've seen very, very many leaders in my experience in the corporate world, plus also in the global consulting world, that one of the prime reasons why people worry is their fuss. Please bury this habit right now. It'll do a long, and a large good for you. That takes me to the next slide. All of us have had bad things in life, we had good things in life. It's never been a smooth ride for us. If you take a list of good things and bad things, anybody, let me call out in this session, can come and tell me that Rajiv, the list of bad things in my life is longer than the list of good things in life. I'll write a blank check and give it to you guys. I mean, it's a fact that check bounce हो जाएगा, but I'll give it to you. You can write it, and कान में आके बोल दूंगा, this is the limit till which you can write an amount and take the money. I don't think anybody can come and tell me that. If you actually write a book like this on a page, try it out, guys. Take a chart paper or this notebook that you have currently, draw a vertical line in the page, break it into left and right halves, and start writing a list of bad things, good things. You will realize that the list of good things and the list is always longer than the list of bad things, at least by one additional number. That's how it is. But we have a tendency to keep talking about the shorter list of bad things and not giving enough importance to the longer list of good things. Why? Because I love doing that. I love to worry. Think about it. We had great plans in on the same day on 25th of February 2020. We had great plans. Did we even know that something like a corona is going to hit us in March? Things turned 180 degrees for all of us. Today we are sitting and attending this session. Have you lost your life? Have you lost something huge that's so difficult? Maybe some of you may have lost some dear one, or very close family member. That's a loss. I'm not saying, and I'm not diluting the grief there. But in larger life, the list of good things is always long. Please reflect. It takes us to the next very powerful principle that law of averages always outlaws our worries. And Dale Carnegie says it's important for individuals to use the law of averages. Whenever you go through a tough time or a worrisome situation, ask yourself and tell yourself, how many good things are happening around me? This is just one worrisome. Let me figure out how do I solve the situation. When you use the law of averages, it gives you an energy from nowhere, bounces you back to look at the situation in front of you and figure out a solution. So after the principle 6, which is stopping to fuss about truffles, Once you start, once you stop fussing about truffles, only then you'll be able to think about the law of good things that happen in your life. So principles 6 and 7 are very beautifully connected. Takes us to the next very interesting slide. What's the benefit of being anxious? I don't know if there is a benefit at all, but it's worthwhile to reflect. We are 45, 47 of us. Imagine this boardroom where there is a discussion happening on something very serious for the organization, a strategic plan for 21-22. Where do we want to grow as an organization? And all of us are sitting inside the room and having a discussion. And there is one person called Peter or Rajiv or somebody who's actually sitting with the hands on the head and a little bent posture that you see currently in the video, that I'm sitting like this, and the man is sitting like this. And everyone, as others, are talking and they're thinking about what to do, and the laughter happening. But for a moment, somebody enters the room and says, "Oh, you guys are having fun. Look at Rajiv, he's thinking deep about what do we do for the organization." Is that a right statement or an observation? I don't think so. Because unfortunately, an anxious person is seen to be a responsible person, an accountable person, a proactive or a futuristic person, which is absolutely a wrong statement. An anxious person can never be proactive, can never be an accountable, can never be a thinking person. Being accountable, being responsible is something different. Being anxious is something different. Let's not equate these conveniently. I go back to my mother. When an event in my family happens, my mother would be, "Oh, this has to be kept, that has to be kept, let's do that." I said, "Mom, things will happen, don't worry, we'll handle it." Her response would sometimes be, "Oh, if we don't do this, who's going to do that? It's important to take care of this. You guys are just relaxed." But the point is, by worrying, is it helping? If you have to keep 10 things in the bag, you have to look at 10 things, keep it one by one. What's the point of worrying? Oh, 10 the seventh one. Does it help us in any way, guys? I don't think so. I just don't think so. So if any one of you sitting here thinks that being anxious or portraying that you're an anxious person makes people probably think that you are accountable and responsible, sorry. Extremely sorry. We have this tendency to amplify anxiety into worry. A small incident. As I'm talking to you, I have a watch kept next to my laptop and I'm seeing the time. It's showing 3:55 in the watch. Let's say while talking to you, I'm moving my hands, as you see, I'm waving my hand waves, and then my hand touches the watch and watch falls down. Well, I'm anxious, uh-oh, would be my response. Is it worth amplifying to a worry? I don't think so. I don't think so. But most of us do that. We conveniently amplify anxiety into worry. This is a very powerful slide, my friends. It's important for you to understand the difference between the word anxiety and worry. Anxiety is still at a lower stage. It's not expanding, it's not amplifying, it's not blooming to become something bigger. It's still at a bud stage. Whereas worry is huge, like you see the image there. This takes us to the next principle, which is one of my most favorite, and I keep telling myself and reminding myself of this principle every time something happens in life. And for me, the advantage is I've worked with Dale Carnegie for many years. Of Dale Carnegie globally. So these principles are in me. I carry them along with me. Look at the principle 8. Decide how much anxiety a thing may be worth and refuse to give it more. Let me give you a nice story here. When Dale Carnegie wrote this book, all the principles in the book, uh, went to bed. He kept tossing on the bed because he was restless. Around 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., he was restless. He sprung out of the bed, went to his study table, and said, "Something is not right. I need to change something. The rest all seems to be okay." This particular principle initially was written in a different way. Let me tell you how it was written. He had written it as, "Decide how much anxiety a thing may be worth and do not give it more." That was initially written by Dale Carnegie. Do not give it more. Look at the paradigm shift. He removed the word do not and replaced it by the word refuse. What magical do you think happens? Because all of you are reading it on the slide as I'm reading it. What does it mean when you say refuse? Who is in control? You are in control. You are refusing an extra anxiety that is coming your way for a thing or a situation that does not need that much of anxiety at all. If a glass falls off your table, if a watch falls off your table, if something bad happens in your job, if something happened not so right in your house, okay, it has got a certain amount of anxiety. A situation which is tough, if it is measured 5 on 10 in terms of difficulty or toughness or how problematic the situation is, if you give a rating 5 on 10, then the anxiety that you give to it should also be 5 on 10, or probably 6 on 10, because we're human beings. You can't give it 9 on 10. No? Why do we allow so much of anxiety that is not necessary? So the principle 8 tells us, how much can I every time think and decide that I'm not going to give extra anxiety to a situation and refuse giving it more? The moment you follow this, my friends, I can guarantee you with my last dollar on the table, because I have practiced this for last 15 years. You will realize that you will become a person who is only giving an optimum amount of anxiety to a situation and not unnecessarily bloating it up and making a mountain of it. अगर घड़ी गिर गया उतना ही एंग्जाइटी, ग्लास गिर गया उतना ही एंग्जाइटी, समथिंग टफ इन ऑफिस उतना ही एंग्जाइटी. Don't give the same 10 on 10 anxiety for every situation. A falling off a watch or a glass is not equal to a divorce, is not equal to losing parents, is not equal to losing children, is not equal to you dying. You're all different. And every different situation needs a different level of anxiety. लेकिन हमको अच्छा लगता है to give the highest level of anxiety and keep worrying. So, my friends, I think principle 8 is a very fundamentally powerful principle that I would urge all of you to start following right away. Decide how much anxiety a thing may be worth and refuse to give it more. Every time a situation happens in my life, I sit back and think, am I attributing unnecessary extra anxiety to this? If a resounding voice from inside comes, yes, then I try to do and reduce it. If it says no, then I say, okay, great. Let me start working on it. Refuse to give it more. You're stopping it. You're not allowing it to come inside you. And finally, my friends, counting on your blessings and cooperating with the inevitable helps us to stay calm, helps us to stay peaceful, helps us a lot to stop worrying and start living. I think these 8 principles that we spoke about, starting from live in date compartments and ending it with decide how much anxiety a thing may be worth and refuse to give it more, I think are very simple yet powerful principles from the book that all of us can follow and hopefully will help us to stay more peaceful and calmer. With that, I will end the session and request all of you to come on your video mode and then reflect and share what was one or two biggest learning that you captured from the last 60 minutes of the time that you invested. I wouldn't call it spent, but time invested. Anybody can speak. Please unmute yourself. I request you to call your name first and then share one big learning that you had. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Before we have responses coming from our participants, we'll be running a poll for our today's session so that all our participants can share their feedback on our today's session. While they're doing so, request them to kindly share their questions pertaining to our today's session in the chat box. Also, if they intend to speak out, they can unmute themselves and speak. Once again, I thank all our participants for joining our today's session. We have received a lot of inquiry about the e-certificate offered by HRAI. You can claim your certificate by sharing your details. When I say details, your name and session attended in an email to the email ID provided in the chat window. We will email the e-certificates to you based on details that we receive.
I'm all open to listen to one powerful learning that each one of you had. So you can unmute yourself and anyone can call out your name and share. We could get started with that. That'll help us. So whenever there is silence, I interpret it in two forms. Either there is so much of reflection that we don't know what to start and how to ask, or there was no reflection. I hope the first one is happening now.
Absolutely. So we have a response from
My name is Gaurang Joshipura here.
Oh, yes.
I think it was very, very interesting deliberation, and I would say the slides, I like that they are very light, so easy to understand. My question is towards, we talked about this reflection more and all the topics more from the individual and person point of view. What would be your views, to do it in a teams, either to take help in overcoming the worries, or the teams themselves have worries, right? Collective worries. So either way, how do you? What are your views when more than one person is involved?
So thank you for that powerful question, Gaurang. Are you asking it as a member of an organization?
Yes.
Lovely. All right, first of all, let me call it out that any one of you in this particular session who are holding senior positions in organizations and you're looking at something for your team and leadership team, you can always reach to me. Peter has got my coordinates. I work with organizations and doing a lot of such work. Answer is very, very simple, and I don't like to complicate stuff. Anything, so if you run a session like this for individuals here from multiple organizations, you only have to run the same session for a team of people in your organization. When you run a session like this for half a day or a day for a set of identified team members who belong to one group or one function having one common deliverable, these sessions can create a great reflection in each member, and together they'll understand that how can we as a team stop worrying unnecessarily, because they'll realize that all of them are tightly knitted towards one common purpose, yet each one of them have got different unnecessary worries. And if a Gaurang in the team member can understand that, let me be of help to Rajiv to stop worrying, and if Rajiv starts thinking, let me be of help to help Gaurang to stop worrying, then I think as a team, the worry quotient can come down. We can always take an assessment of what is the worry status of the team before the session and do the session and ask them to reflect on it for a period and then come back and figure out how much has it gone down. I've seen it, it definitely goes down. Because what happens in a team is here each one of us are thinking individually. Individual thinking would move on to become a collective thinking. And when collective thinking happens, the outcome of collective thinking is always collective genius.
Right.
And when collective genius happens, it is collective performance, collective growth. If that
Thank
answered
you.
your question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please reach out to me in case you want any support.
Yeah.
Thank you for that lovely question.
So we have a next response from Anuja, who says, my learning for today is rating the worry and pay heed to it accordingly.
Right? That's a learning that she had. Lovely. That's a great learning. Yes. So rate your worry. Unnecessarily don't give it beyond what it warrants. If the situation is 6 on 10, the worry should be 6 on 10. It can't be 12 on 10. But हमको मजा आता है. We love doing it. Stop doing that. Anyone else? I see a lot of people still on mute. Tushar says, what worse can happen is a good one. Absolutely, Tushar. That's a very powerful statement, right? What worse can possibly happen?
So we even have a question from Dr. VLN saying, don't worries become contagious?
Oh yes, if
One is
you
worrying.
absolutely right, worry become contagious, right? If you go to this particular powerful book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about a very powerful concept, and he says, and this is for the gentleman who asked this question. In that book, he says, carry your own weather. What does it mean? It very clearly means, irrespective of how melancholy filled or sad the environment around you is, if you carry a weather within you which is absolutely positive, a weather within you which is non-worrying and energetic, he says the weather will spread to the environment around you. It is contagious. So it's for us to decide that, are you going to be somebody who's carrying that worry weather, and then Peter comes to you in the morning with his file asking for something for the day, I transfer some worry to him. And then I go into Faisal's room and talk to Faisal for something, and then I say, thoda worry tum rakh lo. So by that, I'm just spreading the worry all around, which means the weather I'm carrying is a worry weather. It's doing no good to me. It's not doing any good to people around me. So let's ask ourselves this question: what weather are you carrying within you? Even if it is a rainy day, a pouring day, a drowsy day, not sunny day, I can still carry a weather of a sunny feeling inside me and feel happy about it. I can either crib about the rain or I can enjoy the rain. It's a choice.
Thank you, Rajiv, for this actual answer. I just want to give a little case study kind of a scenario. I do not know whether I have some time for this lengthy question. My issue, actually, I'm not talking about my personal side, but what actually I mean to say is, with the online education system that has been really picking up fast and entered from LKG to university level or maybe beyond that, and everybody is in a different streams like science or maybe arts or management or any of those things, and a school level scenario. Even if there are two kids in a home, if one kid has got a picking up the online education, if other kid is not picking up the online education in a small house, in a small one room apartment or one bedroom apartment, whatever we may call it, how actually the discipline of not worrying should be taken up? Because it is a meditation, it is a really a kind of a task, and everybody every day we have to reinforce that we should not get worried. We have to reinforce that part, then only a kind of a habitual scenario will happen. So the challenge is in a small place, actually corporate level, a marketing department worrying for the sales, or maybe a production team worrying for the sales because of the shift system or maybe COVID related scenarios is a different scenario also, that is also acceptable. But these small scale home level challenges, and a wife has to support the husband, or husband has to support the wife, children has to support the parents, parents have to support the children. This is a kind of a equilibrium that doesn't really happen every day to reinforce. So I just want to check actually how to really build a strength in this kind of a population. I mean, unit level populations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. I think the answer is not easy, but one of the ways, which is what I mentioned earlier also, is when you say wife to husband, husband to children, children to wife, the entire family equilibrium system, if each character in the family is going to be looking at the situation as a problem, then worry is going to creep in. If all of us as husband, wife, and children in the family bury the word problem and look at it just as a situation, I think together as a family members, we will try to find a solution to the situation collectively. Because as a father, as a mother, as a grandfather, as a brother, as a sister, we have the good intention for the benefit of the family. If that's what is driving us, and that's what drives all of us. So if we can bury that word problem and look at it just as a situation, I think you are shutting the windows for worry to enter you. I don't know if that answered your question fully, but from a family situation, you don't have to. It's just a situation. Solve it. It's not that a situation like this has not happened earlier. You have solved so many in the past. What stops you in solving the current one and unnecessarily worrying about it? I'll give you an example.
Yeah, thank you.
Last week, my brother and brother, his wife, and the kid had come here. My brother and his wife were out on some work. My daughter, who's 8 years old, along with my brother's son, who's just 4 years old, 5 years old, were playing in the community garden. Sometime later, my daughter, runs home completely in a very shaken situation and tears flowing down her eyes. And she came in, where is Ma, where is Amma? And said, I was sitting in the hall. I said, what do you want? No, no, she didn't want to talk to me. She ran. Thought she lost the small boy. She was playing, and then she kind of turned somewhere, and that small boy was playing with some other boy. And within a couple of seconds or a minute, she turned and saw that the boy is not there. And it was evening around 7:30, so it was dim lit in my community. Obviously, this girl who's 8.5 would have got petrified, and she didn't know what to do. Now, either we can worry about it and tell her, should you not have been responsible about it? And she immediately went to my grandmother and to my mother, which is her grandmother, and my mother said, you should have been a little careful. And I think that was a wrong response from my mother to her. It is not about you being responsible or irresponsible. It is about the situation and how to now figure out. All of us ran out. We started spreading ourselves across the four sides corners of the community and started searching for the boy. And the boy was very happily playing in a play area. It's a fairly big community. That's all. Solve the situation, right? What is the point of worrying? I mean, you start breathing hard. I know that we are concerned that the boy is not available. That's a concern even I had. But is the worry going to solve it? No. It's a situation on hand. Search for the boy. Together, we got him. If we had not got him, then we'll figure out what to do. So what was the first thing I did? I went to the front gate and back gate and asked the security, did you see a child walking past? And I'm part of the management committee of my community. I know that not an ant can pass through without the knowledge of the security. We feel down, we feel lost, but let's find a solution.
Probably,
There is an
yeah,
emotion.
this fishbone diagram must be working in some of these cases. Thank you.
Maybe. The emotion flows, but let's not allow the emotion to amplify into a worry, is what I'm trying to say.
See, adding on to the earlier conversation by Anuja, picking up on the contagious worrying aspects, people add their flavor, like personal flavor to it, and then afterwards they amplify and make it more complex. So that's what she's trying to put across in the chat. We have one question from Bhavna. Yeah. When we lose our near and dear ones, especially the parents, we feel very down and lost. May I know from you on how to overcome such loss by not thinking more, but the mind keeps thinking, how do we handle such situation?
Bhavana, is a very tough question. You should ask this question to Sadhguru. Probably he'll be able to give you a better answer. I am no expert. I am just a mere mortal in the space of corporate leadership space. I don't think I'm qualified to answer this. However, I can just tell you uh, something that hit me very hard was many years back. I don't know if you people remember that there was a shooting that happened in a school and many children lost their life in a country. Terrorists had entered a classroom school and just shot helter skelter. Many kids died. I was listening to this news on NDTV, and the person started beautifully. He said, "When you lose your father, you're an orphan. When you lose your husband, you're a widow. When you lose your wife, you're a widower. There is no word in any language to call you when you lose your children. There's no word." I didn't know this till I heard the news. It hit me so hard, which means losing children is the toughest thing for any human being. The point I'm trying to drive is when you lose near and dear ones, it's tough. It's a loss. But all of us unfortunately know that after some time you are going to be living your regular life. The grief would come and go, but the grief is not going to be staying permanently and stopping your life. I'll give you a small story that I heard many years back. There was this lady who was living in the outside of the village, and she was an outcast of community. She lost her son. None of the villagers were ready to do the cremation for her son because she's from an untouchable community, right? She had to take the body of the son. She goes out of the village to find a place to cremate him. She's tired carrying the body of the boy. She places the body down and sits under a tree for some time to just rest for 5-10 minutes and then resume her walk towards the closest place to cremate. She waits for some time. She starts feeling hungry. She looks up. She was sitting under a mango tree. She tries to reach some of the mangoes, throws the stone. One or two mangoes falls and she eats it. She's still hungry and she wants to pick up a couple of more mangoes which are hanging a little higher. She's not able to reach it. She climbs on the dead body of the son to get the additional height and plucks one mango to eat and fill her hunger. The story sounds very unbelievable. How can a mother do that? It's a story that just tells us that when it comes to such things of hunger and thirst, everything, we are all going to go back and do that, despite the fact that we have lost our father, lost our mother, lost our brothers, whoever it is. That's the sad part of life. But what do we do? To decide how much anxiety I think may be worth and just move on after a point. I don't know, Bhavna, if that answered your question, but you have a better person called Sadhguru to talk.
Thank you, Rajiv. It was a good one, though.
Thank you.
So bury your problems. Truly mesmerizing. A beautiful session. Thank you, Rajiv. Worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only snaps today of its joy. By Guru Gaur Gopal Das. These are the words that we have received from him. So thank you for sharing such beautiful and helpful 8 principles. We will definitely help. It will definitely help our participants to analyze their worries and stay peaceful. It has been a pleasure being with you today. I'm sure our participants would have had a lot to learn from this session. Before we conclude with our today's session, we would also want to thank the association members, Geisha, NASCOM COE, LinkedIn Local, Talgrow, TLE, and GlipTalk for supporting these HRAI events. To know more about these associations, request you to kindly visit the link provided in the chat window. Thank you once again, dear speaker and our participants, for joining us today. Do join us for our next masterclass tomorrow on Work and Life Balance session by Ms. Hina Sharma, Chief Happiness Officer, Hope and Happiness Coach on the 26th of Feb 2021. Request you to kindly register for this event at the link mentioned in the chat window. Also to join the Dialogue 2021 WhatsApp chat group to the invite link shared in the chat window. That's it from us today.
Thank you, Peter.
See you soon. Stay safe. Take care and bye for now. Thank you,
Thank
Rajiv.
you, Peter. Please leave my coordinates for participants if any of them want to reach me for any help.
Sure.
You have my email ID, you have my mobile number. I would request you to please leave it for all others to get benefit.
Sure, sure. Thank you
Yeah,
so
and I
much.
invite any one of you as an individual or a representative of your organization, you can write to me, call me if you need any support for your team, for your organization, for yourself. Bye-bye. Thank you, Peter, for this opportunity. It was
Thank you
lovely
so
once
much,
again
Rajiv.
talking on a topic.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. The participants, I have shared the contact details of Mr. Rajiv in case you intend to connect with him. Thank you so much. That's it from us today. Thank you, Nihali. We can hereby conclude with our today's session.